Hey, good morning, folks. Mohammed Fahim here with attorney Chuck Krugel, and to talk about what is happening with these mass layoffs and the impact that it's going to have on our society in general. Good morning, Chuck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ahmed. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. It's been a busy Sunday morning with the radio show also that we just finished.
Sure.
But I wanted to continue the conversation that we started on the radio. Mass firings, I know that you did explain that when a federal government employee does not really have the same rights as a
Private sector.
civilian
Yeah.
employee would have as far as giving notice of mass layoffs are concerned, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Generally, federal law doesn't apply to Warren Act. I mean, the Warren Act doesn't apply to federal employees. That's
Okay.
what I meant to say.
So going apart away from the WARN Act now.
Yeah.
What is the legality of a person who is not officially elected or part of the cabinet coming in and laying people off? What authority does someone like that have to lay people off?
Well, they don't have the authority, but they can be delegated the authority as long as, somebody who has that authority is taking responsibility for it. So, I mean, it's going to depend on the department that they're in. Attorneys or the employees will sue the department heads, the directors of the agency, and up, I guess, to the executive office, meaning the president.
Okay. So expect a lot of lawsuits going forward. Is that
Well, there's already been a number of lawsuits filed, I believe, at least a dozen or so. And yeah, so there's going to be a lot of lawsuits filed. I mean, there's across the country and in a lot of jurisdictions. Yeah.
so from an employment attorney point of view now,
Mhm.
the employees who are getting laid off
Mhm.
or fired, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term, uh, can they apply for unemployment? Is there
Yeah,
something like that with the federal government?
yeah, no, they can apply for unemployment. It's generally state granted, so they can apply within their own state jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it. And if they're laid off, I mean, once they're let go through no fault of their own, then they're eligible for it.
Okay, but these guys seem to come in with the attitude that you were not doing your job properly, so you're fired.
Yeah, that's kind of aim first. I mean, shoot first, aim later.
Okay,
Basically, they'll go. These individuals will get before a unemployment hearing officer or unemployment administrator in their own state, and they'll probably odds are they'll be awarded the benefits. I'd say with at least 75% probability.
now is there any chance of these guys claiming discrimination also?
Yeah, yeah, depending on how the numbers work out. So if one protected class of individuals, such as African Americans or people over the age of 40 or
Right.
disabled, are impacted, statistically speaking, they're impacted to such an egregious extent that basically, yeah, it's discriminatory. It's called disparate impact. So it's a facially neutral practice, a facially neutral policy or uh, tactic basically just cutting, 20% of the workforce. But then if that 20% of that workforce that's cut tend to be more, disproportionately people over the age of 40 or disproportionately Hispanic or something like that, LGBTQ plus whatever, then yeah, they could possibly win damages, compensatory punitive damages, things like that under federal, state, local civil rights laws.
And where does those funds come from if they win a damage? Our tax
Well,
money?
taxpayers ultimately, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the so-called savings that these guys are projecting by firing people are going to come back on the back end as
50,
compensatory
fifty
damages.
years from now or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the tariffs. I mean, yeah, we're going to see the benefits of the tariffs immediately. It's not going to happen. Prices will go up and jobs will be lost. domestic
Right.
jobs we lost. I mean, that's the same thing that's going on here. I mean, this is like the idea of trickle down economics, the idea that even the bad stuff or the worst of the worst of the worst trickles down to the basically the those who earn the least amount of money, and it hits them the hardest in terms of impact.
So the last time that unemployment numbers went up because of COVID,
Yeah,
I know that most of the state systems collapsed.
yeah,
Okay. And I'm very, very concerned that that's going to happen again, especially, in Illinois is what I can talk about, okay, because I was part
yeah.
of the system. So if the system collapses and they are unable to process the amount of claims that would be coming in, what happens? Who's responsible?
Well, ultimately, I guess the governor and the department heads. And then that's going to trickle down to the staff members who will end up probably losing their jobs or being replaced or whatever. So it's the idea that our technology, generally the technology of these agencies tends to be, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years behind.
Oh, at
Like you
least.
said, like you said in the radio, in the program, that the IDS is still based on COBOL. So, you know, it's it you're going to have this trickle down effect, and then also the people who need the benefits the most, they won't be getting the money because it's going to take the longest. And then there's going to be your typical usual fraud where
Right.
there's during the pandemic, I think Illinois lost billions in fraud. I don't know how much we've recovered. So
So
yeah,
basically, then these guys have really not thought anything through, right? I mean, I know that Project 2025 was in the works for quite some time.
yeah.
Uh, there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes to come up to this point. But then suddenly when you pull the chute and it doesn't deploy, a lot of crashes are going to happen.
Shock and awe. They came in with a cudgel and just basically blasted everything open and see where the pieces land, see what sticks.
Yeah, and that visual that I have, I'm never going to forget that of uh, Elon Musk jumping on a stage with a chainsaw
And so, yeah.
and prancing around like a monkey in a circus, basically, saying we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing that. If you have not thought through what kind of impact is it going to have on any legacy that Trump wants to leave,
Well, I mean, if we hit a recession, it's going to kill his legacy. I think, if we hit a recession and if we hit a hard recession, maybe we could stand a soft recession, but a hard recession is going to be very difficult, especially if there's a lot of tariffs and people losing their jobs and all. Which, well, I mean that gets encumbered with a recession, but we haven't dealt with the tariff issue in a long time. So,
well, that brings me into something that I really wanted to do the deep dive of. Federal government lays off X number of employees.
mhm,
Now they can't afford to get local services. They can't afford to buy stuff. And a local store chain lays off 30% of their employees.
mhm.
Do they have to give a one notice?
Yeah, if that local chain is letting go of at least 75 people, at least that's on the federal level.
Right.
Every state has different levels, but I think Illinois is also 75. So yeah, you'd have to give a warn notice or warn act notice to these individuals, written notice and explanation of what their benefits would be, any severance, things like that.
Okay. So can you explain to our audience what does the word one stand for?
Yeah, worker adjustment,
And retraining notification?
retraining notification act. Yeah. I
Okay.
always keep thinking Readjustment Act
Okay.
for the hour, but yeah, Retraining Notification Act.
So under that provision now, local employers have to give notice if they are laying off a certain number of people,
Yeah,
a certain
75 or more.
percentage of their workforce.
Well, not percentage. No, it's a flat rate, 70, at least 75 employees.
Okay, I thought it was a percentage also if you don't have 75 employees,
No, not that I'm aware of. I could look it up real quick.
Okay.
Illinois Warren Act.
Yeah. So, folks, Attorney Chuck Krugel is discussing what
No,
happens
75
when
employees for Warren.
people get laid off, but somehow in the back of
60
our
days
mind,
advance notice.
yeah. So 60 days advance notice now. Okay.
Yeah.
For local employers, if they are impacted by this national uh, boondoggle that is happening, for lack of a better word.
A number of employers have violated that. I mean, we saw that last year, especially in Illinois, with some of the closures of, I think there was some grocery stores. You mentioned, you brought that up as an example, and then also
Mhm.
restaurants.
Restaurants and
And
grocery
like
stores,
Foxtrot was an example. That
right?
was like a grocery, upscale grocery.
And a lot of people were impacted. Now,
Okay.
that comes the second question now that follows. There's going to be a housing collapse. That's what my expectation is. Okay.
Good.
Number one, with all these tariffs on imported stuff that is coming in, especially lumber coming in from Canada, our president seems to think that we can grow lumber overnight.
Yeah.
Okay, he says, no, we got forests. We are going to have start cutting our forest down. This guy has no idea about the environmental impact, or he is consciously, purposely not even bringing that aspect of it up, right?
Yeah, I think they call it kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and because it's his final term, unless he somehow
Yeah.
manages to,
Yeah.
to what I mean, right?
Yeah. I imagine that's going to come late in his term.
Okay. Uh, Folks, this is something that I have been advocating on the radio for the last almost a year and a half now, since we started the radio show, The Lightning Strike. Reach out to your elected representatives. And that is something, Chuck. I know it's not an employment law related question, but our elected representatives seems to be somehow eerily silent on any kind of fight back, especially on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
There's no fight back except for Representative Crockett in Texas, who is really outspoken about it.
And that guy Green who got ejected from the
Al Green, who,
yeah,
our president claims that freedom of speech is paramount under his administration. And then Al Green gets kicked out for speaking up. Okay. And now,
censured too.
yeah, censured by Congress. Okay. My thought has always been, I don't want to get into the political side of it, but
So,
a lot of these people who are in Congress or who are running for political office, they have a lot of skeletons in their closets. They don't want those skeletons coming out if they even, say one word against what's happening in our country now.
yeah, yeah. I'm starting to see the media now a lot more talking about that too. Like Rahm Emanuel was in Chicago. I think he spoke. I don't recall who he spoke to. It was the Economic Club of Chicago last week, and he
Uh-huh.
was talking about the silence and the fact that the Democrats have not really put up a good fight against this. I think that's part of the shock and awe is that I think everybody's been so shocked and in such awe at the speed and the magnitude of all this that nobody really knows what to do. I mean, we've seen, like Gwen Cox, who's one of the National Labor Relations Board commissioners, board
Hmm.
members. She won reinstatement last week in
Right.
court. So, I mean, she got her dismissal from Trump overturned. Uh, so I mean, I guess she shows up tomorrow, Monday, back at work or something. But so that we've seen some things like that going on. I'm sure there'll be more. I mean, they've withdrawn. I think Doge withdrew a number of the terminations for some of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency stuff, things like that.
And
So
also the Nuclear Regulatory Commission also.
yeah,
Okay, and the people don't want to go back now. So how do you handle that? I mean, our country is going through a very existential crisis at this point. Not two people seem to really notice it. What people are more concerned about is, well, uh, our Secretary of Agriculture has been so kind enough to say that we should all start raising chickens in our backyards. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is the depth and the strength of the economic advice that Trump's team is giving us. Raise chickens in your backyard now.
It's like when they told us to drink bleach at the start of the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, and if you live in a condo or a society where the homeowners associations don't allow you to raise chickens, what do? Not eat eggs, right?
Yeah.
Uh, this is something that is beyond a discussion that we can have in a few minutes on the radio or in a Zoom conversation over here. So let's come back to what we were talking about from an employer's point of view now. Employer ends up laying 75% or 75 people of their workforce locally, gives a one notice, but that one notice is 60 days,
Yeah.
right? So for 60 days, the employer is still obligated to carry those people on their payroll,
Yeah.
regardless of how badly they are being impacted by the economy.
Yeah, I mean, you could cut the notice. I mean, there's a lot of like I said, there were employers who've done that, and I guess what happens is that when the business shuts down and goes into bankruptcy, all their debts, including employee debts to their employees, is worked out in bankruptcy. The problem, though, from that standpoint, is that under some state laws, like in Illinois, this is the case, individual officers and directors of a company can be liable to individual employees for for unpaid compensation.
Because they have fiduciary responsibility as part of board of directors or
Misdemeanor.
something.
It could also be criminal misdemeanor too.
So many aspects to it that people are not paying attention to. And it is fascinating to me how this entire landscape is developing.
Yeah.
Uh, from your practice point of view, what are you hearing from? Are you hearing anything from employers or even employees?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that many calls from employees, but maybe once a week or once every other week. But last Thursday and Friday, I got like seven, or I think about seven calls from pissed off employees. And then employers, I've been getting contacted by very steadily since November, since the election, and then really at the start of this year, much more intense, a lot more interest and consideration. And even now. I've been getting contacted by public sector organizations. Usually, I don't get contacted by public sector entities because I'm a sole practitioner, but I'm
Mhm.
starting to get contacted by them. There's, I think, generally speaking, in employment disputes, or the attorneys are the only ones who come out ahead, right? So I mean,
Right.
it's good for me in that regard from a business standpoint. But you're seeing it's feeding off of people's pain though still. And from my standpoint, I'm feeding off the employer, my client's pain. I'm seeing a lot more of it, and we're having a lot of discussions about attorneys' fees and damage payments and things like that, and whether or not to settle at one point versus another. I'm working right now on a class action biometric privacy information act case where we're in the early stages of class formation, and that's we're trying to figure out exactly how much money that's going to entail, depending on how many people join the class, things like that. So, it's I've never seen this level of contentiousness in the workplace. I never saw this in 2008, and I didn't see this either in the aftermath of 2000 of 9/11.
Right. And even with when in 2008, when the economy was collapsing, we didn't have these external factors of how do I put it, non-state actors.
In the Middle East, and then you have China, Russia, and then we're picking fights with Canada, Mexico, Greenland, and other nations. So
Okay, no, we want to actually make Canada our 51st state. Okay.
along with the Gulf of America and the
I like I like how our governor has responded to these threats now. He wants to rename Lake Michigan as Lake Illinois.
yeah, Pritzker is interesting because he's trying
Okay.
to take up the banner, take up the slack on combating Trump, and I don't see Trump going after Pritzker either. I haven't seen Trump stays away from Illinois politicians. I mean, he never goes after. I don't see him going after Durbin or I'm drawing it. Tammy Duckworth, and you don't see him going after Pritzker, but yet, they all go after him. And, I'm waiting to see something break out between Illinois and DC. I thought it was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen when Johnson went to Congress last week, but that didn't happen either.
Well, Pritzker is a genuine billionaire, okay? Not so much a paper tiger that has failed in multiple businesses, claiming to be the answer. And he said, "Hey, God sent me, okay,
Yeah,
and I'm the emperor now." But again, the social impact is what I'm more concerned about, Jack. I mean, they are laying people off from social agencies now. Okay,
yeah,
Social
it's
Security,
devastating.
yeah. So Social Security is going to be impacted.
Yeah,
Social services are being impacted. Nonprofits are being impacted. And any person that speaks up, uh, the other aspect that they are throwing it is the anti-Semitism part of it.
yeah,
Just look at what happened to Columbia University recently.
yeah. They got their, I think, $400 million grant withdrawn or something like that.
Yeah. And they are threatening other educational institutions also and other nonprofits because if now this is something that Jesse Jackson Jr. and I were discussing on the radio this morning as to how churches and synagogues and mosques are being threatened that your nonprofit status would be impacted if you speak up.
Yeah.
So strange times we are living in at this point. For
By the way, did you see that the Small Business Administration office in Chicago closed up, and they're going to move to a non-Chicago or probably non-Cook County location because of the our immigration policy and all that, sanctuary city policy. So the SBA closed up their office here.
Well, but the sanctuary city isn't the whole state basically a sanctuary state? I mean, unless you go to some very red area in the
Uh,
state.
My understanding is that we're just a sanctuary city. I've never seen like any sanctuary county or sanctuary state. But I mean, yeah, Pritzker has been friendly to the immigrants and has been accommodating. But not all the counties or cities are. I remember, I think at the start of the busing from Texas, when they were dropping people off in like Kenosha, not Kenosha, Kankakee
Yeah,
and Joliet, and then Joliet and Kankakee would bust them up here.
yep.
So,
Because I,
they
I
didn't
know. I
want them
mean,
there.
it's so to wind up, Chuck. I don't want to go too long. I know that it's Sunday morning. Thank you so much for coming on and accommodating
Thanks
me.
for having me.
But what would you advise an an employer who is likely to be impacted? What steps should an employer take at this point to protect their interest?
Well, you mentioned one tactic: contact your elected officials. That's one thing. And also, I think uh, coalescing with chambers, associations, things like that. A lot of business associations and chambers of commerce have political organizations or have like advocacy or
Mhm.
committees inside of them where basically they take up a collective voice on these issues. So I think the collective voice for businesses is a key thing. And I think employers should be trying to do that, go through whatever associations, chambers, organizations like that that they belong to, and getting involved like that. It's this is really this is very difficult. I mean, I've been a part of various business associations, like the GOA, business association, things like that. And
Mhm.
I mean, we would advocate on behalf of individual issues such as the Free Choice Act or the AC Affordable Care Act or high speed rail. But those are single issue topics. What we're
Right.
dealing now are like it's a convergence of like everything, tariffs and war and uh, cutting government at all levels, and all and the constitutional issues, free speech, freedom of expression, all that type of stuff. So, and then the safety nets of Social Security, SNAP, and other sorts of disability or Medicare. So. I mean, it's we've never encountered this before. I don't think we've ever encountered this before. I've never seen this before. So I'm having trouble on a day-to-day basis trying to figure out what do you do. And and I think the key is to just keep your cool and stay in contact with people who represent your interest or who you want to represent your interests.
That's some great advice, folks. My 2 cents on this: don't lose hope. Okay, the 4 words in the English language that I live by is "this too shall pass."
Persistence, it's something I
Okay,
learned many years ago is that persistence can overcome a lot. And if you're not, no matter what you think your weaknesses are, if you're persistent and you try to stay the course, and stay at it, I think you'll be okay. I think a number of businesses will be okay. We're going to see a shakeout. There's no doubt about it.
for
So,
sure, we're going to
yeah,
definitely see a shakeout. But one of the things that, again, that really concerns me is the lack of civic participation by people in our country. The
they don't
average,
know. It's shock and awe. They don't know. People don't know what to do.
no, Chuck, the average voter turnout in Will County, where I live, in the last election, the voter turnout was 18.8%. For our local village mayoral election, the turnout was 13%. So we are letting the tail wag the dog over here. Okay.
Yeah,
Even the percent of people who are coming out, these people are either the MAGA people on both sides, are not just on one side. These are the people who are really passionate about a candidate and they come out to vote.
yeah.
The public in general is so apathetic about it. I mean, they don't really care. And then these things happen.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Jimmy Carter, but wasn't he the one who mentioned this whole idea of like this malaise, that he didn't want this whole fear leading to like the whole nationwide malaise that would basically could destroy us, and that's kind of what we're seeing. I think is a nationwide malaise.
Well, folks, on that note, again, pay
Yeah,
attention. Municipal elections are coming up April 1st. It's a couple of weeks from our discussion over here now. Get involved. And things start off at the local level because all of
yes,
these people who go into national politics, they start off locally. And if we
Isn't-
look at our tax bill, almost 80% of it is for local bodies, school district, park district, fire district, or, library district, the local, taxes that we have for the villages and stuff.
we
Uh,
have more units of government than any state in the nation, I believe, in Illinois.
I would think so. I mean, we have
Yeah,
the village government, then we have
townships.
townships. Okay. I have no idea why we are duplicating services when you have a village and then you have the township. Okay. But hey, again, it's up to us, and our school systems also need to be totally reformatted. There is no teaching of civics at all in our high schools now. Uh,
Yeah.
I I had a couple of plumbers come to the house one day, probably about 20 years old, and we had a kitchen sink backup. And we called one of these companies that advertise. So these guys come in and they come in well trained to how to rip off customers. And I ended up just giving them the $80 for the service call. They come in, they take one look at the kitchen sink and said, "Oh, it's going to be $600 to fix it."
Hey,
Okay. And my son and I, we went to Home Depot. We rented one of those little gizmos for
like a
like,
roto rooter thing.
yeah, like for
Yes.
50, $60 or so. Came back in and cleaned the sink out. But I asked these guys, I said, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And both of them said, "No." I said, "Do
Oh,
you
that's
know
interesting.
who your local representative is?" "No." "Do you know who your state rep is?" They had no idea, Chuck. This is 20 years old, coming out of high school, and that is where I think the problem lies. If more and more people get educated about the civic side of it, I think we can expect some change to happen for the better.
Yeah, civics and basic skills such as manners and things like that it could probably go a long way.
Okay. On that note, folks, thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching us. And my guest today has been Chuck Krugel. He's an employment law attorney, management side mostly. Chuck, how do people get in touch with you?
312-804-3851 or just Google Krugel. Man, that should be a slogan, actually. Google
And man,
Krugel.
that's cool. Google
I
Krugel.
know I never said that before. It just came to mind. But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you literally, but because there's so few Krugels, I mean, it's there's that's it. So
Okay. Google Krugel, man, but don't go Kroogle, but it's Kru.
GEL, yeah,
Okay.
GEL. So
I just want to make that distinction because people will be
thanks.
going, Kroogle and not finding you. Thank you so much, Chuck, for joining us, and thank you, folks, for listening. Stay tuned, and we do come live every Sunday on the Lightning Strike on WCPT 8:20 a.m. You can tune us live on the radio locally or listen to us worldwide on heartlandsignal.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Take care.
Thanks again.